He had a natural love of the ocean and was drawn to Newcastle for its famous surfing beaches, travelling here with 3 board riding friends.
Everybody here is, they had a bond with Atsu straight away. He was probably the most popular person that was in the hostel altogether.
The 26-year-old lost his fight for life at the John Hunter Hospital late yesterday. He'd suffered extensive injuries after falling from a second-storey window of the Newcastle Backpackers by the Beach hostel early Friday morning. His parents have donated his organs for transplant. They're considering a special surfing ceremony in Newcastle to honour their son.
They absolutely loved Newcastle, and they said that, they know how Atsu felt about Newcastle now, because he said he'd like to stay here.
A police investigation into what caused the accident is continuing. It's believed Atsuo may have moved his bed close to a window to feel the sea breeze. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
After spending most of last week high and dry thanks to a broken propeller shaft, the young Endeavour was back in familiar territory and set for its next leg, circumnavigating Australia, but not before a military-style send-off. An armed guard held court over Newcastle Harbour, while the Fort Scratchley Historical Society dusted off its finest for a 4-gun salute. As the smoke cleared, the young Endeavour fired back, but it was no match for the gun on the hill. Aside from its permanent crew of 16, 36 passengers bravely sailed past Nobby's and into a stiff 40km/h southerly. They'll alight when she eventually arrives at Ulladulla. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
If it takes off, an Auckland to Newcastle air service is predicted to provide a $10.5 million boost to tourism and business sectors.
I think the opportunities are endless, and talk about 500 additional jobs, I think is just the tip of the iceberg.
Commissioned by Newcastle Airport, the Centre for Asia-Pacific Aviation today released this discussion paper. It assesses the viability of regular trans-Tasman flights.
So I think the opportunity for people from this area to travel to New Zealand at a very small cost, avail themselves of all of the opportunities that are there, is a very huge market as well.
Air New Zealand and Qantas have expressed interest. The aviation report says the 500-strong Kiwi visitors who stay here each week would double if Boeing 737 flights were launched. A recent upgrade of Newcastle Airport allows for a further 2 airlines to be established without interrupting RAF activity.
We've got a lease arrangement with the military that allow us X number of movements per day, as in arrivals. We do not breach that lease arrangement now, but nor would we with additional operations on a trans-Tasman type flight.
The ambitious plan will next be discussed at a specially convened forum at Port Stephens Council on the 20th of this month. Key representatives from airlines, government, business and tourism groups joining the talks. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Stage 4 saw the 59-strong field head out of Newcastle for the first open road race leg of the nearly 1,000-kilometre-long classic. The first few Ks looked leisurely enough, but that didn't last. Breakaway group started almost immediately on the city's outskirts as riders tried to get an early break on the relatively short stage. English champion Jeremy Hunt worked in tandem with teammate Dan Smith as a trio broke away. Holding an 18-second advantage heading into the 60-kilometre leg, Dutchman Jan Kurtz didn't seem too worried. A strong tailwind held Blower chasing pack up with the leaders, but Kurtz had missed the jump, a flat tyre robbing him of vital time. He did manage to catch the pack, but it was Polish rider Gregor Vash that took the stage win. With that, the pole also took the yellow leaders jersey into 30-kilometre criterium around Nilsson Bay streets. Kurtz's luck eluded him again, crashing, but a trio stayed well clear with another Polish rider, Pavel Niedwiecki, edging out Australia's Jarad Poad in a sprint to the line. Vash holds a 6-second lead overall from Kurtz, with the road race to the Central Coast tomorrow.
The race which stops a nation is over in a matter of minutes, but the lead-up for Cup Day punters takes far longer. The state's TABs opened early this morning, and a steady flow of gamblers had their prediction for the big race.
That's going to kill it, man. Arctic out.
TABs forced to issue more than 30,000 tickets per minute in peak time across the state as punters made their choices. But some came simply for the atmosphere, horse tipping running a distant second to having a good time.
I've got no idea. Actually, I'm going to bet on everything, so I'm going to win, guaranteed.
An expected $40 million from New South Wales alone will be bet on the main race. And although that wasn't run until after 3 o'clock this afternoon, some set up early, the big screen proving almost as popular as actually being there. And in Hamilton it was a similar scene, decisions to be made over which horse and rider would perform on the damp Melbourne track. A decision made even harder for those who aren't regulars in the gambling scene.
I only bet once a year and this is it.
As well as partying and gambling, the Melbourne Cup seems to be a fashion showground. Parades going hand in hand now with the lead-up to the big race. The Cup tradition of wearing large hats doesn't seem as entrenched in the Hunter as it is in Melbourne, perhaps reserved for track-siders. But Australia's biggest race has caught the imagination of everyone in one way or another. Like in Muswellbrook, where the residents celebrate with a manure and shovel race on their local horse track. While it's not quite the same as the Cup, it's as close as some of them can get, but helps punters stay in the right frame of mind to enjoy the tradition.
Come here every year, it's fantastic. Always have a good time, there's always plenty of horses to bet on, plenty of people to meet up with.
The Northern boys got into the spirit of things on the Central Coast for the race that stops a nation, but the form guide on this soccer side makes great reading too. If last up starts are any indication, the Spirit will be raging favourites on Saturday night. On loan from Blackburn, Englishman Ben Burgess looks to be worth the interest, banging home a hat-trick against Auckland in the 4-2 win for his first ever top-grade treble.
We're playing with a lot more confidence now than the start of the season. I think it would be a match for anyone at the moment.
Another who hopes to make an impression is former Newcastle player Scott Thomas. The defender was at Sydney Olympic before finding a new home at the Spirit and is just one game back from injury.
I'm not sure of the lineup at this stage, but hopefully I'll play and it'll probably be in the midfield or at the back line.
Just who starts for United will be finalised tomorrow, with Asala Massey ruled out today with his knee injury. He'll have further scans tomorrow in Sydney. And the first mix for joint tenants at Marathon Stadium, with United players joined by some Knights at training last night. United coach Lee Sterry got the Knights stepping out, but he isn't likely to be suiting any of them up for a run with his side.
Stage 1 of the demolition of BHP started 2 weeks ago. Stage 2 was approved by Council last night.
This demolition is one of the larger tasks within the demolition program. The coke ovens is a particularly complicated area and will take over 12 months to demolish.
Tenders for the work are now being called for, with dismantling to begin within 2 to 4 months.
Once the buildings and the structures are down, the decontamination spots that are within the site can be addressed.
A decision on whether the state government will give the go-ahead to a $300 million plan to transform the site into a multi-purpose shipping terminal is expected late next month.
BHP and Newcastle Port Corporation are working together on a program to attract an international operator.
For the terminal to become a reality, it would mean the controversial destruction of 14 heritage-listed structures, such as the blast furnaces. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
They've got into this room here and looking at evidently for money and jewellery because...
When 72-year-old Melv Ninny's home was ransacked, the thieves made off with jewellery worth hundreds of dollars and her late mother's engagement ring.
It's terrible because I've had it for so long.
As if that wasn't enough, the elderly widow says she was forced to wait 20 minutes listening to a recorded message before reaching an operator on the police service's assistance phone line.
Welcome to the police assistance line. Your call is important to us and will be answered by the first available operator.
Devastated because you feel as though you should be able to get help or aid earlier.
4 phone calls were made to the hotline today by NBN News, with the slowest response time 17 minutes. Only 1 call was within the target time of 1 minute and 15 seconds. Police admit yesterday they experienced technical problems and a review of the response times is underway. Meanwhile, Mrs Ninny's is angry that she waited 6 hours for police to arrive. She was eventually telephoned 6 hours later and told officers couldn't make it. Wallsend police say a car was sent but diverted to a more serious car theft matter. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Each of these sunflowers floating on Newcastle Harbour today represents a life lost. The symbolic blooms were cast adrift by people living with the aftermath of suicide. Eric Trezise lost his brother at age 20. Two of Patty Clibben's close friends ended their lives within a year of each other.
I didn't realise just how much I was missing them, so I really appreciated this today to be able to throw the flowers in the water and say goodbye properly.
Memorial services like today's are being held throughout Australia as part of Suicide Prevention Week. With almost 3,000 self-inflicted deaths a year, that's like wiping out the population of a small country town every 12 months.
A person may become depressed or they may begin to isolate themselves. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to commit suicide, but those are some of the examples of things that could mean that they may.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Newcastle Beach last hosted a race in 1997, but it was new territory for many of these Iron women. Not only were several making their series debuts, but few had ever raced the distance. It showed with many of the younger competitors going out hard early in the 5.25 kilometre enduro. Not so Reen Corbett. She timed her run to perfection to come home and score her first race win since 1996.
We've got 4 weeks till the next one, and it's fantastic to get the confidence there after the first race.
The men's race was a real open affair, a 90-minute slog that wasn't made any easier, with stiff northerly winds making life even tougher. World champion Phil Clayton made an early exit, while by halfway, hometown boy Josh Blair had opened a healthy lead. But noted swimmers Steve Pullen and Kai Hurst worked their way into the lead. On the final board leg, the defending champion looked like starting the series with another win, but Pullen got the jump just metres from the beach, and he wasn't to be denied this time around.
It's happened to me so many times, you know. I've come off with someone else at the final run and lost, so not today.
Josh Blair finished third. Not even the best sprint car drivers in the world can avoid accidents, and drivers had several to negotiate with last night. Race leaders Kerry Madsen and Brooke Tatnell among those affected by crashes. After many delays, Robert Farr took the checkered flag. Horses for courses and the $1 million money earner Courage Under Fire showed at Newcastle Harness Track last night why it's one of the best over a mile, winning the rich $45,000 Tooheys Invitational. It was also trainer Brian Hancock's 6th Newcastle mile win.
This is how a Christmas tree should look. Presents underneath giving recipients something to look forward to on that special day. But it's a time of year not everyone can celebrate. Some people are unable to place anything under their trees. So a combined charities group got together to encourage people of the Hunter to lend a helping hand.
7 of the major Christmas charities are saying to people, what we want you to do is to run street parties or business parties, get people to bring along toys or presents so the 7 charities can distribute them throughout the region.
Today was the official launch of the 2000 Christmas Appeal. It's the second year that charities have combined to help the needy, and this time around the Smith family have joined the ranks. They say that by joining forces it's easier for the public to offer support, not having to pick one particular charity.
People may think there's competition between charities, but it's not really. We're all out there doing our individual jobs and helping those many thousands of people between our various organisations.
Being the start of the charity push, the group are calling for community support to help fill their empty warehouses. Donations and gifts, big and small, are always welcomed. Adam Harper, NBN News.
Four-year-old Robbie, 8-year-old Jamie Lee and 11-year-old Melissa had been on their way home from a Gold Coast holiday with their parents Charmaine and Glenn Riley in January 1998. The family were killed when their car was hit head-on by a four-wheel drive travelling on the wrong side of the Pacific Highway at Kew near Port Macquarie. The man behind the wheel of the four-wheel drive, Douglas Brian Heyman, an engineer from Sydney, walked free of charges. A jury accepted he had fallen asleep without experiencing any warning signs that he was drowsy before the accident and therefore couldn't be held legally responsible. Rick Riley, who lost 5 family members, describes it as a ludicrous legal loophole.
The punishment I'm getting for what he's caused, it's unbelievable that I get all the punishment, I get the 5 life sentences, he gets nothing. He doesn't even lose his licence for a day.
There's now a growing concern that the number of people using the dosing defence is rapidly on the rise. That's when a jury accepts that a defendant had no idea or no warning signs they're about to fall asleep. The family's tragic case has raised concerns within the government's Road Stay Safe Committee.
If we've got a loophole in the system, legal or otherwise, the government has a responsibility to block that loophole.
The committee pushing for a governmental legislative review. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
In Cardiff's industrial estate, even bars, security alarms and double locks aren't enough to keep thieves out. Gary Brown's business has been hit more than a dozen times.
But 10 in the last 2 years, there probably hasn't been a trader in the area who hasn't had at least one break-in. We're just fed up.
Break-ins are costing them money, not just in lost stock and cash, but skyrocketing insurance premiums.
If the insurance costs get any higher, I know my insurance companies, they've said this is about it, we're not covering you next time, so we can't afford that.
Now business owners are hoping the power of the masses will be the crime-fighting force that makes the difference. Around 100 people attended a public meeting late this afternoon to discuss security options for the area. And while police say there has actually been a recent reduction in the number of break-and-enters in Cardiff, they also encouraged business owners to ensure their security systems are up to scratch. Brooke Webster, NBN News.
Facing the sack and likely to lose thousands of dollars in basic entitlements, workers from Carrington's Steel Tank and Pipe have taken to the streets. They braved the wind and rain to picket near the Merriweather Heights mansions of company directors Stephen and Brad Weeks. Back at the plant, the workers maintained a blockade of the gates, knowing that if the business, now being run by an administrator, closes, they're likely to be left empty-handed. But they say no product will be delivered.
We just had a gutful of it. And now we're told the trucks are going to start coming soon, so we're not going to stand back. No way. Yep. We want our money, and they're not going to get through.
According to the union, the company's collapse was sparked by the purchase of a factory in Melbourne that carried a substantial debt.
Trying to recover that debt has put them in the position of not being profitable.
Trades Hall Council says workers' entitlements need protection.
If the workers' entitlements were protected in the same manner in which these employers hide their assets, workers would have nothing to worry about. So yes, we should go and protest at the front of their place and just show the public that while they're living in their $1 million mansions, people who have entitlements of $15,000, $16,000 are going belly up.
A spokesman for the company directors says if the men return to work, they'd have a chance of saving the factory. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Last night's public meeting was a desperate plea for help. Business owners in Cardiff's industrial estate have tried extra locks and security systems, but now it seems cooperation may be the only answer. Traders have joined forces and will together decide how to stop thieves. A committee has been formed and representatives of the businesses will consider options such as the installation of cameras and full-time guards.
I think if we had a full-time security man that never left the estate during the night, I think that would alleviate a lot of our problems.
And traders are more than happy to help themselves, even when the cost comes out of their own pockets.
On the surface you'd say, yes, I want the police to protect me, but deep down there's not enough of them and they're doing their best job, and we understand that.
Police agree that a cooperative approach is the key to keeping crime at a minimum. They say with more than 1,500 businesses in the Cardiff estate, even police patrols are unable to stop the problem. And the self-help approach is a growing trend. The organisers of Swansea's Mobile Community Patrol say it's been a success, increasing awareness in the local area and encouraging people to report crimes. Brooke Webster, NBN News.
In the witness box today, Lionel Desange, a man who before being accused of conspiracy to murder, owned clothes shops in Sydney and was the majority shareholder at the Lochinvar Equestrian Centre. Throughout the trial, the Crown prosecutor has alleged that Desange hired 3 hitmen to kill his business partner John Stewart because he blamed him for vast amounts of money lost in the business. But under questioning by his barrister Greg Scragg at Newcastle Supreme Court today, Desange claimed that at the time before the attempted murder, he viewed the long-term prospects of the centre as good. Desange said he never had a conversation with Gary Brown as to whether he knew someone that could have knocked someone off. Asked if he had spoken of a $30,000 for the contract killing, Desange again answered no, but added he had paid Brown, a recreational shooter, for 2 pistols. Mr Desange also denied giving Gary Brown, one of 2 men serving time for his involvement in the attempted murder, a tour of the Stewart's home to show him where the couple's bedroom was located. The defendant claims he was in Sydney at the time, 4 days before the incident. It's expected the Crown will start cross-examination of Desange tomorrow. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
While it may be a while before they make it to Manpower Australia, it hasn't stopped these men of Muswellbrook giving their all to charity. 12 businesses are supporting the nude calendar, with staff derobing for the camera and strategically hiding behind various in-store props, and some just bearing all.
The money raised will go to the Muswellbrook District Hospital Palliative Care Unit and also the small hospital, the Cottage Hospital at Denman.
Photo shoots are done late in the afternoon in the hope that there are no customers coming through the store, catching staff at an awkward time. Even though some of the participants seemed old hands at getting their gear off, they claim it was a first-time experience for them and took quite some time to pluck up the courage.
A couple of VBs has helped. I think it's just for a good cause and it's a bit of fun.
There's a few people who are camera shy out in the community. There's a few charity-minded people too, and I think there's one person who's probably a little bit excited at the bodies.
This year's calendar should be on the shelves within the next few weeks, but some people just couldn't wait to see what the calendar had to offer.
There's a young bloke from who works as a refrigeration mechanic who'd probably catch the eye of a few ladies, yeah.
Adam Harper, NBN News.